Welcome to another Terrific Tips for Business. I am Terry, your host, and you can't spell terrific without Terry. Just makes sense, right? Today, I'm really excited to have a new friend on the show. I met Paul through a dear friend of mine, Cindy Park. You may recognize the name, but she's a travel agent extraordinaire who used to be here local to me, and now she is out in Washington State area, where my new guest here is from as well. So I'm really excited to have Paul Kuthe. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did perfectly. Nice job. Not an easy one.
Awesome. I'm excited to have him on the show today because he has a lot of really insightful and interesting background. So for those of you that don't know Paul, let me introduce him really quickly. He is the best-selling author of Activate Your Life. He's been an adventurist, even being featured on National Geographic in some kayaking adventures. How cool is that? I love it. He's also a StoryBrand certified guide. And for those of you that don't know StoryBrand, I'm sure he's going to enlighten us on our conversation today. And he's been coaching business professionals across the country, both business professionals and brands, for over 5 years. And before that, he was coaching some adventure athletes. I'm sure that wasn't a shock after I told you he was on Nat Geo, right? He now lives in Washington State with his wife and 2 boys, and the koi fish that he was adopted in his backyard when he bought the house. But they recently moved out to the country. So now you know a little bit about Paul. I met Paul through Business Networking International, and I'm so excited to have you here. Paul, thanks for joining us today.
It's exciting to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Terry.
Yeah, absolutely. So what an awesome adventure you've been on. How do they connect? Like, where's the connecting point between the adventuring for Nat Geo and being a business guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting progression professionally, but I think the connection, really, the underlying thing is that running an adventure and running a business are pretty similar. There's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of must-make moves and decision points along the way that really determine your successful outcome or your unfortunate demise. And so, such is life. Business and adventure are very similar.
True. I do find that our entrepreneurial small business owners have some kind of adventurous spirit of some point or some sort where they really just need to have this thrill of like doing something that somebody else hasn't done before, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's this sense of kind of walking your own path. And I always kind of pointed out to clients along the way that if it was really easy and it felt like you were on an effortless path, you're probably walking on somebody else's path. And so if you're going to forge new paths, it's going to take some effort and it might not always feel certain, but it is ultimately the way that you're going to create something new.
That's so true. And right now we have this really unique opportunity in our entire country to take advantage of creating something new with this whole pandemic going on and shortage of supplies. On your side of the country, what are you seeing has been like the biggest trends in your area right now?
Well, I mean, right now, being a parent, I'm hearing a lot from the other parents. And so one of my clients is a owner of a tutoring business where they specialized in working one-on-one with students suffering with dyslexia and other learning challenges. And, as a good example of one of the things we're seeing is really having to adapt, one, getting her online and working with her clients strictly online at first, but now doing some in-person socially distanced learning as well as on Zoom, but really getting her and her student work there to solve this real pain point that parents are feeling around either neglecting their kids and letting their learning lapse, or professionally not being able to put into their jobs the way they need to. And by positioning her services, changing them, we've filled her practice full of small group students, and suddenly, the idea we had 2 weeks ago is now securing her $10,000 a month in additional income by just paying attention to those pain points and kind of moving with the market.
That's beautiful. And I'm so glad to hear that somebody else has been empowered to take that step to be a homeschooler, take that role of helping our students learn in this really strange time. And I think it's going to really change the way our education system operates going forward.
I think it really will. I think it's going to be changing a lot of things. And the discussions we've been having is what isn't going to go back to normal. What is going to be a new way about doing business. And the people that are thinking in those ways and not just yearning for what was, but actually helping, push forward to create what's going to be is who ultimately will be most successful.
Absolutely. I agree completely. I've had some really interesting conversations focused around time lately, and time being the main thing that's stopping people from moving things forward in their business. It's not the right time because it's chaotic. My schedule is all over the place. I don't have a firm grasp on what's coming next. I can't. I just have overcommitted myself. So time is kind of a big topic over here. What have you found has been a successful way to help these small business owners who maybe aren't quite embracing the future yet, to help them kind of get out of their own way?
That's a great question. It's something that is always coming back to the surface, and they feel really isolated. So my suggestion to them is often to speak with their best clients, speak with those folks that have been with them and have been loyal, and really tune back into why it is that they started doing business with them and why do they continue to do it even through these hard parts, and identify what are the new pain points, what are the new things that their clients are actually experiencing, so that you can be at the forefront of solving those problems, those new problems, because ultimately that's where you need to move your business towards and how you need to pivot. They'll tell you, but you need to ask, you need to really tune in and get out of your own head and your own problems, which there are many for a lot of business owners right now. And you really have to remove yourself from that and start tuning in with an empathetic ear of what your clients are really experiencing and what you can do to help.
What I'm hearing, Paul, is we need to be more client focused.
100%. Yeah. And you will never go wrong doing that. But when we are pulled in so many directions and our worries kind of consume us, it's really easy to lose sight of that fact. It really does matter.
Absolutely, especially when you're feeling some pressure yourself for your house, for your business, for your employees. It's easy to lose focus of who you're serving and start kind of enclosing your space. And that's the smaller we start thinking, the tighter the space gets and the more claustrophobic we all get. And people do weird things when we become claustrophobic, just like when we're really hungry. Have you noticed this similarity too? People
So
get
true.
weird when they're hungry.
It's so true. And I think it does speak to that dynamic. And one of the things I really appreciate about StoryBrand is that concept and that paradigm shift for a lot of businesses that take them out of that hero role and make businesses really realize that the story isn't about them. It's not even about their business. It really is about inviting their clients into a story that's about the client and really serving as their guide as opposed to their hero. And when we're consumed and we're worried about our own stuff, we're worried about our own hero's journey. And we start to lose that guide positioning. We start to lose that perspective of the guide, which is all about empathy and authority. And so that is instantly what happens. And we need to get back and centered on that and get out of our own way and stand strong in our guidance and really be present for our clients, who is the actual hero of the story.
That's such a beautiful point. And I want to emphasize that because we hear this hero journey, the heroic, unique identity spoken by a lot of people who are pretty big in the social media space. And it does. You lose your message when you focus too much on yourself. We really do need to step outside of ourselves and remember that every single one of us is only here because of our customer. And so how do we make the customer the hero? Because they really are the hero. So how do we make them the hero of the story instead of it being focused on ourselves? Do you have a couple of tips that you might be able to share with our audience that might be able to start them thinking about that process or that path if they haven't already?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the early steps that we talk about in the StoryBrand framework is to really look at and analyze the problem. And so often we are consumed with our own problems, and the problem for our client really exists on three levels. There is that external obvious problem, which is what most businesses want to sell to. Most of the time people are peddling sort of solutions to external problems. And in reality, what people buy around are really that second level of problem, which is that internal level of problem. It's really, they're wanting to solve how they're feeling about their problem primarily is the thing they're truly worried about, and what will actually motivate their actions. Because of course people take actions based on feeling, and we like to think ourselves as nice rational humans, but in reality most of our purchasing decisions are emotionally driven. And so we need to get into that second internal layer of the problem. And then of course the philosophical layer of the problem is that final kind of just what's wrong about the situation for your client. And if you can really hone in on their problems on multiple levels, you're already starting to position yourself as the guide. Because again, one of the key elements of that is that empathy. And if you're really getting yourself there and understanding the problem, you are being an empathetic, positive guide in their story. And that's the initial step.
So it sounds like a really important question to ask when you're talking with your customer is not just what's the problem right now, but you're listening actively for how does that make you feel? And
Yeah,
asking that question really kind of gets into that second layer, doesn't it?
you can ask that second layer sort of question. I always feel like a psychologist when I ask it, and so sometimes I've found an interesting way to get there that maybe feels a little bit different than you would normally expect. But the question of what's important to you about that is a really powerful question. What's
Mm,
important to you about that? Because you can ask for that problem, and the client will usually give you that external problem, whatever it is. My website isn't converting. What's important to you about that? Well, I needed to convert because, Q3 sales need to hit a certain mark. Otherwise, we're going to be down and I'm going to need to let somebody go. What's
mm,
important to you about that? I don't want to let anybody go. I don't want the momentum in the team to be killed. I mean, they're going to feel defeated. Now you're at a feeling. Now you're at a
mm.
place where you can work from. If you just start spouting off solutions for website not converting without going deeper into what's important to you about that, you don't actually get to the real emotion and the core issue. Really what they're worried about is that loss of momentum
Yeah.
and that feeling in the team and that morale. And so suddenly you start dealing with a separate issue that maybe is related to it, but is not necessarily so far removed that you are now off course, right? You need to bring it back to what they actually need and what you can do about it. But until you drill down and get into the emotion, that internal layer, you're not really going anywhere. You don't have much to really sell on or really help them with what they're actually having a problem with.
Yeah, and it sounds similar to, I don't know if you follow Tony Robbins at all, but he has a course called the Knowledge Business Blueprint with Dean Graziosi. And they talk about the 7 layers deep. You ask why 7 times.
Right.
Sounds very similar to that. And the reason we ask why is because eventually you move out of my head space and you get into your heart space.
Mm-hmm.
And like you touched on a little bit ago, we as human beings buy irrationally. We buy the things that make us feel secure, feel love, feel valued, feel important, feel seen. Notice all of these are feel. That's what we buy for. We buy, all of our buying behaviors are based on one of those feelings.
It's to
And
either
so
have a feeling they want or to get rid of a feeling they don't.
exactly, exactly. So if you can get into your own feelings as a business owner, you can really start to tap into the feelings of them,
It's
of
that
your
empathetic
clients.
piece of that guide, 1-2 punch, empathy and authority.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I have to ask you, why is that important to you?
Why is what important to me?
Why is helping business owners with this
Uh,
journey important to you?
yeah, for me, helping business owners is really giving them tools that can actually change their life. Because the small business owners and the medium-sized business owners that I work with, the work-life balance is a cruel myth. It's sort of an outdated concept from yesteryear, and the expectation to have separate realms is really a source of constant struggle and tension. When we start thinking about integration, and for our small business clients, they are their business, they live their business, and how can we start figuring out how to properly integrate those two realms for success? All of a sudden, they're not just improving their business, they're improving everything about their life. They're improving the amount of time they can spend with their kids. They're improving the amount of influence they can have on their community. They're improving so many different things that exist beyond them. And so for me, that it's really important to have that sort of impact and do something that really matters to them that's going to change their world.
Absolutely. Have you found, or do you know of a pattern of behavior or habits that exist that really help business owners achieve that?
Mm, absolutely. It's being really, really strong with your boundaries around time and
Mm.
really good at organizing what your actions are within that time. People always talk about you manage time, and you can't really manage time. You can manage your energy, and you can really be selective with how you're spending it. And so I'm a really big advocate for one of the first things I do with an executive coaching client that I have is we will sit down and actually break down their day in 15-minute chunks. And it's not to mean that we have to write in every move you make every single part of the day, but we need to take a really good look at what are the series of behaviors that exist. It's from the moment you wake up to the moment you sit in your workstation, and what are those series of behaviors that exist from then till your next sort of break, and what are the things we need to plug in there as routines or things that we can start to automate to get the most out of that energy during that time. And so for any sort of business owner or aspiring business leader or somebody who wants to really go anywhere, it's going to be taking a really detailed look at how you're using time and how you can identify the gaps where we can do more, and identify the spaces where you need to pause and recharge and take a break. One of my favorite ways to build this 15-minute sort of schedule out is to do it in power blocks of about 45 minutes at a time. And that allows people to work on one thing for 45 minutes at a time. And if they miss a call or they miss a thing, usually within an hour of getting back to somebody is suitable. And they're able to actually get so much more done in that 45-minute focused time. And then they can spend the rest of that hour, the 15 minutes, checking email, grabbing a snack, stretching their legs, whatever it is, but then set that timer again for 45 minutes. Turn off, set your phone way away, and actually focus in. And you'll be amazed at how much more you can get done in a couple of power blocks versus a full day of work.
That's really smart. I was going to ask you what's kind of the best way to control, because 15-minute time increments is like, holy smokes, I feel like I'm tracking every single move I'm making in 15 minutes, and it seems like a lot to do.
Right.
And it seems like it would be distracting if I'm trying to accomplish something is to have to stop and record what I'm doing every 15 minutes. But to
Oh
have
yeah.
it in 45-minute blocks, now you can like actually get done whatever you were doing and
Mhm.
then record what you were doing. So that way you have that documented process. It
Right.
certainly helps people get out of the day to day, I would imagine.
It's true. Well, it gets you in the moment and gets you focused on one thing at a time. Yes, multitasking is a myth as well. You're really just switch tasking, and your brain, every time it switches modes from one task to another, is burning energy and burning calories and making it that much longer for you to get into that prime sort of work mode or that flow that we talk so much about. So I really do advocate for not recording what you're doing throughout the day, but actually planning it out the night before, and taking the time to write it out. I literally have you can do a print off with the times down the left side and just fill it in for yourself each day. But before you wrap up your work day, have that plan set for the next day so that all the decision making is out of it. We talked about people make purchasing decisions emotionally. Well, they make decisions about what they're going to do next in their day emotionally as well. And when you plan it out ahead of time and just follow the schedule, you're removing all those opportunities to stall out and let your brain convince you that actually what you need to do is check social media again, or you need to run down and have a snack real quick or whatever it is. It's nope. I've got my plan right in front of me. I just do that. It removes all the decisions out of it.
And I think the beautiful thing about that is now you're operating off of the things that you want to get done and not being dictated to by your phone, your email, your social media, your text messages. You're not letting other things that could happen in the day. Now you're setting the time aside to deal with those things happening in the day. So you're not being completely removed from
Quite nice.
everything going on, but you are making the decision. This is the most important thing today. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm talking about the one thing, the book that
Yep.
Gary Keller wrote, right? This
I
is the
have it.
most important thing today. This is what I'm getting done.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters.
Right. Right. It's exactly what we need to do most often, and it's often the thing we least want to do. And so
What have you discovered in this process with the business owners that you've helped accomplish this? What's been kind of the outcome for them?
Oh, they get hours of their week back. They have so much more productivity in that time that they find themselves with extra capacity, and also just more energy at the end of the day. Decision fatigue is a thing, and when we have to make all of those decisions throughout the day and factor in everything happening between each of those tasks, now you're recalibrating and thinking about everything you need to do, and it's exhausting, it's overwhelming. And so you actually end up with more time and more energy at the end of the day doing it this way, and really more flexibility. I mean, people feel like, oh my gosh, that's so rigid, I couldn't plan out that detailed. I like some spontaneity, I like some variety, I like to be able to just let things happen. In reality, if you have a clear plan like this, it's so much easier to move stuff around. And if you have a call that runs over, or a friend pops in and you want to like take 10 minutes, you can quickly look down and move that block over to a different spot and open up your schedule and have that spontaneity, but not lose track of things and not be wonder where all the time went in your day.
So you really run your day instead of the day running you.
It puts you in a very proactive state, and that's something I learned on the river, is a survival mechanism. As a kayaker, if you're operating in a reactive fashion and you're behind a step, the river doesn't ever stop, just like business and life doesn't ever stop. And you can start quickly getting behind and start missing some key things and start falling into some pretty big pitfalls. So being in a proactive sort of being in the driver's seat, driving forward, is crucial on the river, and I think it's crucial in business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say is one of the biggest challenges that either you have experienced or maybe you've helped some of your clients through, especially right now? What's been kind of some of the biggest challenges you've been hearing about?
Yeah, I mean, so I work with several lenders as well, and one of my lending clients has always built a really strong team culture around the office, and has really taken this group of what is really independent professionals, running their own loan origination businesses, and put them into a team setting in a way that really gives them community, camaraderie, competition, lots of things that help drive them and make them stronger. And they've really created a strong, positive culture around the office that suddenly now nobody's around the office. And it's a highly recruited field. Lending, people are always being recruited, and it really is a challenge to try to keep folks cohesive and keep that culture alive and keep people really wanting to buy in and work for the company as a team, rather than worrying about just their own and worrying about their individual production. And some of the challenges there that we've been able to face have been through establishing team meetings that also incorporate a one-to-one meeting once a week with every single team member. And sometimes it's just 10 minutes. Sometimes they're just quick huddles. We use kind of a bit of a newscast format for these huddles. I mean, the first thing is the distinction between a huddle and a meeting. Like, a meeting is a sit-down thing. It's about a specific topic, and you're going to have another meeting to follow up with that. A huddle is usually standing, just like a sports team, right? And it's a quick, and it's going to hit a kind of the range of what's topical right now, and then you're going to move ahead. And we use this newscast sort of formula in that it's headlines, it's weather, and it's traffic. What's going on? What are the big headlines happening? What do you see coming down the pipe? What's the forecast? What's the weather? And then what's the traffic jams? Where are we seeing possible conflicts here? What can we do to address those here and now?
I
And
love
doing
that.
a team huddle as well as individual sort of one-to-one meetings has really been able to help people feel connected still. And doing those over Zoom, of course, is a challenge, but also important. And then combining that with some outdoor distanced opportunities to gather as a team. We're doing right here at the river is where we live, and so we have been planning a narrative mindful river retreat for that team, where they can come and kind of reconnect with themselves, reconnect with their team, reconnect with their story, and take a little moment to be together, but be it outdoor in a safe way. So just finding ways to adapt and still get together.
That's beautiful. So still really focusing on bringing that team mentality to life, even outside of the traditional office space, and taking those relationships offline. I think that's beautiful and brilliant that you've come up with that. I really love your forecast, your weather, your
Oh
uh,
yeah.
headlines and the sports analogy or the traffic analogy. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it works. Very good format. Steal it. Everybody steal it. I did. It's great.
It's so awesome. Do it, write it down, take it. It's good.
The thing is to do it, right? Like so many business owners or leaders, they just assume that no news is good news and they just want everyone to just do their jobs. But it really takes engaging and actually checking in on a daily basis in a genuine way. And it's just an efficient way to do that.
Absolutely, for sure. I love that. Are there any tools that you have found that have been most successful with helping business owners manage some of that day to day, some of the tasks that they have to do, going back to that time challenge and managing and controlling the time and the energy? Are there automation systems or things that people maybe aren't aware of that they should be that could help them free up some of that time?
Probably. And honestly, I'm going to go a different direction on you here a little bit. I keep a good digital calendar is essential to just get the family and business all coordinated and everything. So I use a digital calendar and I have a scheduler so that I can send my link out and people can book time on my calendar. I think those two things are key. When it comes down to actually like planning out my day in those 15-minute chunks, I know you guys can't see, but on video here you can. I literally just like write out the day.
Oh, wow.
So I'm totally analog on that because I want it in front of me. I want to be able to adapt it and change it. And just the process of writing out the day the night before makes me think through it in enough detail. Well, I'll catch different things. I'll catch issues or problems. I'll catch tasks that I need to get done before I meet with that person. It sort of forces me to slow down and really look at it. And by physically writing it with my hand, it sends it through a different track in my brain. And I have to think about it and slow down a little bit and make sure that it is what I actually want to do that next day. So I do a bit of a different take on it. I believe strongly that we need to automate some things like scheduling, and we need to be able to access our calendars anywhere. And I definitely adapt the digital or embrace the digital world. But for me, I still find value in doing some things the old school way and just writing it out by hand.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to do with like active learning, memory retention is involved when you move your body. You have to lock it in through a body movement, and just typing it on a keyboard uses too little of your body, whereas handwriting something out, your whole arm is having to move. And it kind of puts more of your body into it, and you have to be more aware of what you're writing. So you're more conscious and in that very moment. So it's kind of locking in a different way. So I totally agree with that. Physically write it down. Own a journal. It's important. I have mine right here.
Yeah.
I journal all of I even call it my thoughts. It's got thoughts written on the end, but it's got all of my different, like, what do I need to be doing and different steps that I could look at.
Yep. And there's something visually for me that I can see it. And, we have kinesthetic memory. People talk about muscle memory and that, and there is a connection kinesthetically to our memory. And when you do that, you do tend to remember more of it and process it differently. So yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of a fun thing there.
This is so amazing. I'm trying to think, like, what else do I want to ask you? Because you've been such a wealth of knowledge. You've given so many good nuggets. Thank you.
It's what I enjoy most. For me, coaching is more of a lifestyle than a profession, and I do my best to turn it off, especially when my wife is talking to me, because she does not want me to coach her, and I try not to. And same thing with family and friends, but I do love it. It's really fun.
I think that kind of goes back to that work-life balance thing you alluded to earlier too, in that when you're really doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. It feels more like play. And since it feels more like play, you kind of accidentally happens when you least expect it.
I couldn't make my profession whitewater kayaking and sea kayaking and having so much fun doing that to something that I wasn't genuinely having fun doing and enthused about. So I found myself the same way out on the water. I have more fun taking somebody new out and having them learn something new and showing them these amazing places than sometimes I do just going on my own.
Sure.
And so it's the same sort of thing. It's like a way to see through, it's like so the way through, see everything through new eyes, like you're seeing it for the first time. It's like watching an old movie with a friend who's never seen that movie before. All of a sudden, like, oh, my favorite part's coming up. This is so exciting. Where if you were just watching it on your own, you'd probably just skip it.
Right. Or you're just excited that it's coming, but you know it's coming. So it's not the same. You end up spending more time watching your friend watching the movie than watching the movie because you want to see their reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Being able to share that with them is amazing.
I love that concept, though, of being able to kind of see the experiences through somebody else's eyes and reactions. And we don't often think about business that way. But as a business coach, I'm in marketing, so I get to do this all the time too, right? Being able to see the aha moment, and you're like, oh yeah, they just got it, and it's so exciting.
Everything just clicks.
Everything
just clicks and works all of a sudden. No, it's
what's been one of your like absolute favorite projects to work on?
Oh, that's a good question. There's been a range. So many fun projects just shot through my mind. One that's coming up that's been pretty interesting. It's kind of a new thing. Is there's a new client I meet with next week who is starting a pickle business. A pickle business. They are starting gift pickles. And it's basically a gift jar with really nice gourmet pickles in them. And he and I are going to work together to kind of formulate a structure, a business plan, and then the initial messaging on the website. And so I think it's going to be a really nice break from, I've got a family law attorney. We get into like some really serious family law issues and some heavy stuff and finances and mortgage professionals and insurance. And I think it's going to be fun and just a nice change of pace to like deal with other than life and death and that sort of stuff. It's just pickles. It's just pickles. Pickles are fun.
Reminds me of the Dane Cook script. Do you remember Dane Cook, who was a comedian several years ago?
I'm not sure. I probably recognize him.
He has a whole skit that he does about the lady at the Burger King drive-thru who's asking for pickles, and he's like freaking out. Get her the pickles. She wants the pickles. It's so funny. You should just look up Dane Cook and pickles.
I'll have to. I need to start diving into pickle advertising trends, and it's going to be an in-depth research project, I'm sure.
Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. I actually have a friend here in North Carolina who had her own line of pickles, and they were great pickles. And then Heinz Brands came along and duplicated her recipes and put her out of business a couple of years ago.
That's what we got to watch out for. See, I need these stories as a business coach. I need to know what went wrong there, how to prevent it.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that because some of those bigger companies, they have the financial resources. And here's the catch. You only need to change the logo 10%. Right. In order for it to not be brand infringement.
And they also, the bigger companies can afford to lose money on it for years until you're gone, and then they can profit.
Yeah. And they hire the people. Like, so all they have to do is go to the store and buy the jar of pickles, and they hire the taste testers to taste it and write down what's in it. You have the ingredients, but a taste tester who's got like a really refined palate is going to be able to tell you exactly what % of each of those ingredients is in it.
Ratios. Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll be able to recreate it. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, in the food industry, which is one of the reasons I don't play in the food industry. So have fun.
It is a challenge. There's a lot of competition out there.
There is. But I think there is in every industry, isn't there? There's a lot of competition in every industry.
It's true. Yeah. That's why I like his unique model on, yes, the pickles are great and everything, but a lot of it is this, turning pickles into a gift and having that breakthrough in people's minds as something to give. When you think about giving chocolates or roses or whatever, but people who love pickles would love you if you gave them a gift of pickles. And
pickles are actually really good for you. There's something about I don't remember where I've heard it now, but it's got some kind of enzyme or something in the pickle, and it's really actually very good for you. It actually helps with digestion. That's why a lot of restaurants, when you order a burger or whatever, they're going to give you a pickle on the side because it's going to help you with the digestion of the food.
Makes it all go better.
That's right. Yeah. So if you had a new business owner sitting in front of you today, or if you were a new business owner sitting in front of you today, what's one piece of advice that you might give that business owner that's just getting started?
I would say that the important thing would be to give first,
Mm,
because they are often in the mode and the mindset of how can I get business? How can I get clients? How can I start this thing? And building reciprocity and giving first and finding a way that you can provide value before ever asking for anything of anybody. So a big part of starting a business is to reach out and network and share your idea and market it and shop it around and see what people respond to, and for taking up their time and for having the time to meet with you. It's so important to remember that your primary goal in that initial meeting and getting to know somebody is to find a way to help them and with whatever it is and provide them value in some way, and then worry about the receiving later. That'll take care of itself.
yep, it all comes back around.
Mm-hmm.
It all
Mm-hmm.
comes back around. That's great advice. So for people who maybe are not as skilled at that, is there a way that you can maybe help them learn how to be better about figuring out what people might need, how they can be that helpful resource?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is asking questions. It's just digging deeper. We kind of talked about it, kind of digging into the different layers, but asking follow-up questions and really honing in on what it is that they're trying to achieve. So asking somebody what they're trying to do with their business, or what it is that they're looking to do in the near future, and then ask them what the real challenge for them is within that. And
Mm,
that question is a really powerful one, because it's not like what are the problems you're experiencing, or what's hard about that. It's what's the real challenge for you in doing that. And it
mm.
makes them stop and dig a little bit deeper and find something that often you can help with. And even if it's just talking through what the real challenge is right in that moment.
Or even if it's through somebody else that you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
You start
Because in
connecting the
that,
dots.
it's like everybody that you come across might not be somebody you can help, but if they have some challenge that they're facing that's related to business growth and development, now you have Paul, you know who Paul is. So maybe you're not a business development person, but now you know who Paul is. So now you can refer Paul and get him connected to that person who needs that help. Or
That's
if
right.
you know somebody who needs financial assistance, okay, well, we've got financial people that, you just reach out and we can connect you to the financial person. Are we financial people? No, but we
No.
have financial people.
Yeah. Don't pretend. But yeah, sometimes helping them means just connecting them to somebody else who is a good influencer in that sphere.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something that you're doing personally to fix that problem. But yeah, connecting them and looking for ways that they can be benefited from somebody you know. Hmm.
What is something you wish you knew when you started business, but didn't?
I mean, the first thing that jumped in my mind was that I wished that I knew how much the business would change
Mm,
over the time that, because you get really fixated on getting it right in the first place, and so many people have failure to launch syndrome, where they want to analyze and make it all perfect and get their logo and get everything done before they ever even release anything to the world. And as soon as you start telling people about your idea and pushing it out there, you start getting the real key things you need to make it work. You start getting the feedback, you start getting ways that you can change to it, add to it, improve it, and it may morph into something completely different from what you had originally set out to build. And that is okay. But if you're really fixated on one idea of what it needs to be, you can really limit yourself. So I wish somebody would let me know that, don't sweat the details so much. Just start and be open to evolving it as you go.
I love that. Be open to evolving it as you go, because things are always changing, especially right now.
Right?
When you're in uncertain times, things are always changing. And if you're really rigid and stuck on what you think it ought to look like,
Mm-hmm.
you really are closing the doors down for opportunities of what could be.
Right.
And the more open you are to receiving that feedback, receiving that information and taking it and applying it, the better off you're going to be all the way around,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep. We have our reticular activating system, right? It's like that internal filter for what our brain really wants to see and take in as information, because we can only take in so much. And when you are setting that to a very fixed idea and a very closed off sort of narrow focus, you can miss some of the greatest opportunities because you don't even see them. Your brain eliminates them, crosses them off the list for you without any conscious thought because you're so focused on what this should be instead of seeing what it could be.
There was a game show years ago that reminds me of, and I cannot tell you now the name of it, but it was way back, at least 14 years ago, because it was when I was still living with my parents in upstate New York. And they were talking about pessimists versus optimists. And it was like, it's kind of like a candid camera thing, honestly. But they had the people who self-identified as optimistic people and people who self-identified as pessimistic people. And basically what they did is they had these people go about their daily life and they would put random like things in their path that were very positive that would allow them to take the next step forward or whatever. And depending on their self-identified personality, identified if they saw those items and took advantage of them or straight didn't even see them. And I'll give you an example. I remember very distinctly, there was a man who self-identified as a pessimist, and they put $100 bills like on the road in front of him, like on his way to and from his shop every day. He didn't see it one time. It was there every day for a week. He didn't see it once.
Wow.
And I was like, what? There was a piece of mail that was mailed to him that had a check in it. And all he had to do was take a picture of himself with the check and post it on social media, and it was his free and clear. Yeah. And he didn't do it. He didn't even open the mail. Right. And so that kind of goes to that like reticular activating system, right? Yeah. Like if we tell ourselves we are something, we are closing off those opportunities or those possibilities without even being aware of it. Like we just don't even pay attention to it.
Our brain is really, really happy when it's correct. Its survival depends on it. And so it will do everything it can to make itself correct and to be accurate in its prediction. And so if you're predicting that it's going to be a negative thing, then your brain is going to do everything it can to seek out those negative signs, that evidence. It's the reason we're so polarized in this country. It's the reason that people can perceive the same events through very different lenses. And it's tied into confirmation bias, and it's something that just exists in all of us, which is fine as humans. We just need to be aware of it and be actively seeking evidence to the contrary on our assumptions.
Absolutely. Is there a brain hack that you have found that's worked really well to help you kind of keep your mind sharp and open to the possibilities?
I don't know if it's a hack so much as it is it's a practice that I have all my clients do, which is to write a goal narrative. So I have all my clients set goals as any good coach would, but a lot of people want to set goals in a way that I think is actually harmful. They want to create like a bullet list of like, here's what I want to accomplish by a certain set of times. And they might even be really good at it. They might even use like a SMART formula where they make specific goals and they're measurable and they're, are actionable and realistic and timed. But when you take it a step farther and you bring your goals into story form, you are activating a part of your brain that is going to help drive that goal forward. You're really setting up your filter, your reticular activating system, just like an athlete would visualize their performance, just like I would have my kayakers visualize their descent of the waterfall before they ever sat in their boat. Every stroke, every detail, what's it going to sound like? What's the moss going to smell like when you go past the rocks? We really need to plug our goals into a sensory-driven story that happens in the future as though it's happening now. And when you do that, you are setting that reticular activating system, but you're also kind of setting yourself up for the ability to share that story. And when you share that story, you share your goals, you then have accountability and support. And so you're setting your brain to see the possibilities. You're getting accountability and support, and you're really giving yourself a tool for motivation, because we talked about people making purchasing decisions based on emotion and their decisions of what they're going to do throughout the day based on emotion. Well, you're going to make your actions towards your goal based on emotion, and stories stir that emotion. So if you can write that goal story, one of the ways to get a little bit of help with that is either get the book, Activate Your Life. It's got a chapter in there on goal story writing, or you can head to my website at tributarycoaching.com, and there is a free download on a guide on how to use story to empower any goal. It's going to walk you through the steps.
I was going to ask, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you so that way they can reach out?
Yeah.
So tributarycoaching.com, go get your free guide on how to build your story around your goals. Are
Mhm.
there other places that they might be able to reach out to you and connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So that is probably the main spot is at tributarycoaching.com. Tributary, like a side stream coming into the river. But you can also find my profile at the clarifyyourmessage.com at the story brand directory there. And you can see some past projects and some brand messaging work that I've worked on for several projects. And then outside of that, it's going to be the social media channels. So Tributary Coaching can be found on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all the places.
All the places.
Yeah.
Paul, this has been absolutely delightful. I so appreciate you sharing so much information with our listening audience. Gosh, I hope they took notes. I know I'm going to listen to this again and take some notes on some of the things that you shared because you really did drop some wisdom for all of us. So thank you very much for sharing it and for being so open.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. It was super fun.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing it again.
Yes.